Governments really need to distract so you don't see through what you're seeing through right now, which means their distractions aren't working as well as they used to. That's what I'd like to preface the show as, because that's truly what is happening. You know, we're in a hologram anyway, so when you look at the reality around you, you're perceiving through your body only 5 senses to decode the hologram you're inside. Now that's how it's been since birth. We're all born into this, right? So now this is a crack in that, literally electromagnetic crack through the wall of that programming that we've all had our whole lives. It cracks and you'll be able to see right through it coming up in a few months. Now distract from that.
Welcome to the show here at tradcatnight.org. Listen, we got another great show for you today with David Dubine from Adapt 2030, folks. It's right in front of us. Economic food wars. I think David's got one of his videos even entitled Wheat Wars. We, of course, know they're going after land. We got to get the latest prepping-wise from David. What's he up to in East Tennessee? We do know it's going to get nutty here very soon. I'm not saying that the stock market crash and economic crash is not talked about, but it's certainly more of a back burner item to those items. When we start hitting that as front page stuff, and we're just talking about that practically all day, puts the hair standing up on the back of your head, because we know that's more or less imminent now. So having said that, we're going to hand it over to David. David, thanks so much. And where do you want to start today? On the economic side, do you want to start?
What's the true reason that we're seeing all these changes amplified and suddenly in a quickness, do you think? I guess that's the direction to go with, like economy and food. That's a scary combination, but it's here. It's really here. Well, again, I'll bring you back to October of 2024. Yeah, this year, in just a few months, the planets are going to square off the gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, are going to make a square configuration in the outer solar system that hasn't been seen since 79 AD. Now, we have the sun, and that's one magnetic field in our solar system. And it'll be our little dot Earth, and then we'll have those 4 gas giants squared off in the outer solar system. Some say there'll be no effect. Others, like myself, have seen a lot of paintings previously and disruptions in society. Higher tides accompany this geometry that also has coastal effects. So I'm starting to look at something much wider. Why is all of this happening right now? If you knew there was an inbound effect that was going to, with natural earth changes and electrical disruptions and then supply chain disruptions it would occur anyway. What would you do to distract or change during this time? Like, this event will be here, and you're starting to see this crazy, incredible mixed up weather and these earthquakes and volcanoes and earth cracks. Every day is increasing as we are finally entering into this last quarter before we get right into the middle of that field in just a few months. So if you look at it from this perspective off planet first of what the electromagnetic changes are going to be happening, the observance of humans to see the reality around them bend during a higher or different magnetic field. Be the government and then distract the people right now, and then you're starting to see it play out on the stage here. Like, there's distraction on top of distraction on top of distraction. This is it. We've coming into the last final beautiful and magnificent this way comes. But governments are afraid of losing control because of whatever wave of different perception is allowing to manifest on this planet through electromagnetic differences in the brain, perceiving reality differently. That whole electromagnetic sphere of change is occurring as we speak and intensifying until, the end of October. President Trump warned the U.S. dollar is crashing and will no longer be the world standard. BRICS, attracting more and more countries and moving away from the U.S. dollar. A global de-dollarization trend accelerates. Gold is security in times of uncertainty. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. And Patriot Gold Group has an OP for Life IRA, where your IRA or 401k could be in physical gold or silver. No fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Give them a call, 888-546-7020. And now on with the video. Governments really need to distract so you don't see through what you're seeing through right now, which means their distractions aren't working as well as they used to. That's what I'd like to preface the show as, because that's truly what is happening. You know, we're in a hologram anyway, so when you look at the reality around you, you're perceiving through your body only 5 senses to decode the hologram you're inside. So using that alone to be manipulated through this electromagnetic change, imagine the human physiology. When you're looking at something and you actually see their true aura or their true energy essence come outside of, they can't hide it any longer. Once you see these changes, the only thing left is super calamity, like economic, not contraction, but full collapse, like the worst in human history kind. And I keep seeing these prophecies coming out, and there's more and more and more and more of them that are coming, and they're all pegging on the same time and the same dates and sort of thing within this next 12 months. But again, is that getting the media to you then believe on those timelines and then get you to create the reality that is meant to be created, but not of your benefit, of their programming to create that reality? Now that's how it's been since birth. We're all born into this, right? So now this is a crack in that, literally electromagnetic crack through the wall of that programming that we've all had our whole lives. It cracks and you'll be able to see right through it coming up in a few months. Now distract from that.
With mentioning October here too, I've mentioned this with David Knight, who we had on last week, and some other guests. You know, going into October, some months prior to, I kind of narrow it down to a few things in terms of an October surprise. But I'll be honest with you, this year, like, all cards are on the table, man. Your guess is as good as mine. And I'm right there with you. I wouldn't be surprised if we have some very serious earth changes coming. As a matter of fact, I just watched a predictive programming movie called Continental Split. You can find it on Tubi, which is a free streaming app. And basically it shows how that, the future U.S. Navy maps where the water just runs through the whole New Madrid area. Well, it basically shows you in that movie the continental split and how that's going to happen, kind of thing. There was an article that was sent to me by one of my Track and Night followers saying that they were running some exercises in the New Madrid area. FirstAlertFord.com, disaster training starting near Busch Stadium. Emergency responders prepping for catastrophic disaster in 3-day exercise. And again, in that movie, the reason why it's important is because in that movie, that's basically what it was centered around: Busch Stadium and the arch. I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that one. But is the October surprise just going to be something on the natural level, do you think, or do you think what card do you think will be played?
It's a continuation of a system. So that's what's at stake here: the continuation of the system to allow these people to stay in power or not. As anybody that would literally fight for their life, or an animal's fighting for their life in nature, or you are put into a cage match and then only one of you comes out, like in Roman times. That's the kind of fight that's going on right now. And you have to think nobody's going to let it go easily. And the next distractions, well, a lot of them are going to be natural, but I'm really borderline on some of these technologies we have that can amplify. Since I've seen a lot of storm amplification in the last 2 years, pretty easy to spot that. So what else can they do with harmonics and frequency? Can they really cause those earthquakes to become larger? Can they take a volcano that's begun to erupt and then, cause more agitation in that, and then make it, from a VEI 4 to a VEI 5 just by pulsing it electromagnetically, or some, bouncing something off the ionosphere back into it continuously as a hum, for a better term? I mean, what's a technology available to really take it to the uber? Because something massive this way comes, that the world is being sacrificed at any cost, with the most events to get you to give the emotional output they need for more control. And these things are going to come like machine gun fire. We saw the Trump thing, and then we had this computer outage, which is not done, which I'd like to talk about that for a minute. We had somebody, who was that, and Biden resigns, and now they're starting to find out that these servers, so everybody who saw the whole CrowdStrike thing, BitLocker is an encryption service that most enterprise clients were running right along with that CrowdStrike system. The problem is, you need the decryption key to get into the server to reset it manually with all those things, or get the updates pushed to remove that file that just kept it in boot mode loop forever. So they're having a problem finding the keys, so they can't reboot. Which companies aren't rebooting at the moment that can't because they can't find their encryption keys. That's a huge story that nobody's talking about.
No, I mean, that makes perfect sense. And since the last time we talked too, we had like an AT&T hack. We had the whole country of Ecuador going down. I mean, a lot of hacks happening, whether it be, a lot of these stories aren't even being reported upon. Some of these bigger ones obviously are, but yeah, the Microsoft one was a little bit weird. I was mentioning to my folks, there was like a day or two where I was on my desktop, I was unable to send a message saying that was like suspicious activity was being observed. And like, I haven't done anything differently than what I would normally do. And I was locked out for a little bit. I don't know. It was just kind of bizarre. Outlook, of course, being a part of the Microsoft deal there, but they're kind of tinkering and toying and tampering with everything, right? I mean, and eventually it's going to hit the economic side of things where you're not going to be able to pull out money eventually. Can we talk a little bit about wheat wars, the famine cycle returning from farm to famine, bracing for skyrocketing food prices? Again, we talked about this at like the beginning of the year where, listen, it's going to be a trend where it's going to continue to get worse. Where are we at in terms of that famine cycle, and what can people expect moving into what I'm going to call the fall fiasco months, man, because I think it's going to be something else between the big UN meeting. You got a big thing going down on the church side of things with this synod. Of course, you got the elections upcoming. Like, we got a lot of stuff coming. What are you expecting food price wise? Because like I said, I mentioned you off air, like next month, I'm really honing in on food, water, seeds. I'm getting back to the basics. What's your thoughts?
Here's one thing I need to also try to impart. You may have had the ability to go and find food in a supermarket, but you didn't have the ability to pay for that food in some supermarkets across the U.S. during this outage. Self-checkouts didn't work. The debit cards, the tap cards didn't work. And then the barcode scanner devices also didn't work. If they can't reduce or add inventory, like on returns, or if you're purchasing something, okay, -1 went out the door. If they can't measure that because everything's on just in time, and the ridiculousness of preciseness of the systems of reordering, since they couldn't get anything inventory, they just shut it down. They no, we can't sell you that. It either had to have how many you bought, like if I bought 1 cup or 2 Pepsi or 3 bush bean packs or something. If you couldn't register the number on it and get a quantity, they wouldn't sell it to you because it would throw off their ordering system. So again, they wouldn't even let you pay for it. And then that's 3 things right there. What are you going to do? Steal out of the store then? Hey, I have the money. Now, luckily, they were taking cash, but some of these supermarkets that were taking cash, none of their self-checkouts were working, none of the registers were working, they couldn't tap anything. So it came down like just 1 register for everybody, for the cash people, and then also the ones coming through with cards. Can you imagine that? Like a panic situation and only 1 register open and 500 people waiting for food? That's crazy, and it's here. It's already here, so it's intensifying.
And that would create more of a police state. Like if we have that situation sort of arise again, or it becomes more normal, think about all the police they're going to need at those locations. Because I know people would just be running out the doors. And probably most instances in liberal areas, they'll just allow that. Like they want that to happen, but they're going to use this as an excuse. Because that happened even during COVID. Remember, we covered that together where there was more of a police state at the door when things started getting kooky during COVID. So we know that's going to come around.
You're so correct with that. See, it's very different for COVID. When it comes down this time where there's actual real food shortages and you join the police and you're taken care of and you're well fed and your families are fed because you keep that system going, there's going to be an enormous line to join that because they'll get fed and they'll get, their position of power. And this is a very dangerous combination. When you take people's food away, they will do anything. And when you get them into those, police, it will just increase. And the larger it gets, it's going to be far different than anything you've seen in movies. It's going to take on a life of its own because this country is a life of its own.
How high are we expecting food prices to go across the board? Let's just say like in a more general sense, instead of breaking down each category. What are we expecting if we already know we're probably in the 25 to 40% range? Are we talking like biblical, where it's going to, are we getting closer to that time period where it's basically a day's wage enough to eat for the day, basically, as the apocalypse writes? Like, how close are we getting to that day? In my opinion, thesis, and I could be wrong on this, I think it's going to happen in stages. Like I said, the Antichrist will shortly arrive before the stock market crash. Then the stock market crash will happen, and then we're either going to go into hyperinflation or deflation. I think you and I, we talked about deflation, I think, being more of the plausible scenario. We'll see how it all plays out. But then eventually down the road, we get like maybe like a year or so, or however that's going to work out, of like really bad, tough times, then that hack will eventually happen to where you can't get anything out of your bank account. Like, I'm not expecting that card to be played this year personally. I think that's a little bit down the road after the stock market crash. But again, my timing could be wrong.
The events we've seen over these last 2 weeks, and again, something strange about it was the news cycle usually doesn't start on a Saturday or start on a Sunday as the lead stories coming out Sunday morning, as that's like the beginning of the news week. Most times, choreographed as it is with the media, it's generally a Monday to Friday. They let you off, the stress relief, go out, spend the money, the world will stay together. You come back on Monday, we'll scare you again. That whole thing doesn't seem to be the same model any longer. It's a full continuous from Trump to the computer outage to the resignation, and now I'm just trying not to even pay attention anymore, because these are the distractions that are going to be out there like Gatling. It's going to be, they're going to be coming fast and furious. This is the beginning of the overwhelm phase for everybody's psyche to deal with all the intense information coming in. It's going to literally be overwhelmed, where it's going to shock and awe you into just sitting there like a vegetable for a minute trying to figure it out. This is that amplification phase coming.
And also cause more division when you're getting, like, in times past where, let's say there was one event to be talked about on a weekly basis, David, like a lot of people would be able to sit back, I'll research it for a little bit, 2 or 3 days, and then you kind of come to a conclusion. When you're getting like rapid fire like that, and there's already pretty harsh division across a wide variety of topics, just imagine how divided people are going to be. If you were normally, getting defriended a couple times a day on Facebook, like, expect maybe like a dozen people a day. You know what I mean? It's just because there's going to be, you're going to have so many opinions, more opinions coming on the vast topics that you're being hit with. And there's going to be a whole lot of different people disagreeing with you. So more distractions, more dividing, I say.
Right. And then you add in all the like incredible weather events happening right now. I mean, when I say that, I really mean like incredible everywhere, all continents simultaneously. We'll see what happens with the food supply this year. This has exactly the same things to do with this electromagnetic field that we're going to be coming into in October. I mean, the sun goes through its changes, and our Earth responds because the electromagnetic fields are connected. So, I mean, big changes on the sun mean big changes on the Earth. So if you knew we were coming into a very large cycle beginning and we're already in it, but it's amplifying right now, then you would expect the very same thing, that the weather events will get much more chaotic and intense as we move forward, lockstep with the electromagnetic changes feed into what our regular terrestrial jet streams and cloud cells and weather pattern systems are. The more chaotic and the more energy goes into the systems that build the weather on our planet. So there's a one-to-one relationship to that. But at the same time, the human psyche perceives reality different because there's a different electrical state of the two lobes of your brain. See, this is what we're coming into right now. And how much food can we grow, or how much food will actually be allowed to be given to us is more the thing. Because a lot of times I think some of these, what are going to be quote unquote perceived shortages or spotty shortages, are going to be more created than they're going to be of real scarcity.
Because in times past, when I talked about, the plan to get us off of our land or to control our land more, I would always talk like wildfires and, maybe there'd be like a nuclear reactor sort of event, like a 3-mile aisle. But I really haven't been talking about the volcano side to it. Like, what happens if Etna pops off like tremendously? Yellowstone, like we're gonna be in a dark winter in the summertime. What do we do then in terms of trying to grow crops? You know what I mean?
Indoor only at that point. Whoever had that operation set up,
Yep, that's what I have. I got hydroponics inside. I do it for a variety of reasons. Once the purge happens, if you're the only one to garden on your block, guess where people are going to migrate to. And then also I was talking about this little get-together I had with Ken and Tracy and Mike at my place over the weekend, because Ken and Tracy have their own kind of like little thing going on. We were talking about chicken confiscation, like how concerned are you, and I'm speaking to kind of everyone here now, the proverbial you, in terms of, is your homestead going to be next? Do we have to put our chickens underground, the underground chicken market? Because I know you had Jim Gale on here. What were you guys talking about there?
I'll tell you the story in a second, but you mentioned the volcano. So Sakurajima is a big one in Japan that's erupting currently. But for a lot of people who didn't know, including myself, John Casey, former NASA space advisor, he was the one who had said, this is the one to think about, that it's not going to be Yellowstone that's going to give you this year without a summer. It's going to be Sakurajima, and that was the one he was really, really focused on for this round of whatever it is that takes volcanoes into a more active state. So Sakurajima was his big VEI 8 that would probably be this time, because he kept going, this is super volcano, David. I was like, okay. And whoever can build out a greenhouse quickly enough too, so whoever can run to the store quickly enough and get the 6 millimeter clear poly plastic sheeting on a 100-foot roll and have 4x4 beams and 2x4s around to put up a greenhouse lickety-split, you're going to be the winner. So whoever's able to get the materials to put up those greenhouses, because you could still do that next to your house or next to your barn. It's just about the ash and the light cover. You want to keep it more controlled in the environment. Whoever could set that up, 36 by 8 or 16 or something like that, or 32 by 16, just a big long rectangle so you can set up your grow in there really quick. Some of these things we're going to have to start thinking about, because if they're coming for your chickens, and this is from Jim Gale, he ordered some custom-built chicken coops, very similar to Joel Salatin's rolling chicken coops, and they brought them from South Carolina down to Florida. And on the way, when they were coming into Florida, they got checked, and then somebody spotted 2 chickens in there and then wrote a note that they hadn't tested their chickens, or they didn't get any paperwork with the chickens, whatever. And then 8 months later, they come up to his farm and go, you got 2 chickens that you didn't have the phytosanitary or whatever testing. But you're like, wait, that was 8 months ago. None of this talk of bird flu is even on the radar. You can't proactively put something in and then, from 8 months ago, a new law is active. That's crazy. But both of those birds have been killed by coyotes. So they threw them out. They got 50 acres, so they have a lake and a estuary. So they put it back out, so the birds got eaten, part of the ecosystem. So the county officials come on and go, we want to see the skeletons of your birds. And they're like, oh, we threw them back into, the wetlands area knowing that something would eat it. We don't have any skeleton. And they're like, all right, that's $1,000 fine for that one. That's $1,000 fine for this one. Yeah, and then right after that, you're not going to believe it, the building inspector comes in a week later. They were really messing with this guy for 2 chickens. They put out an entire task force to have several trips out to their property for 2 chickens. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. You got all these problems going on across the U.S. in multiple cities. But see, I'm not shocked, because they need to control the food. The crime, that does its own things. People kind of create their own fiefdoms out there. That's cool. But to control the food,
man, you mess with people's food and their ability to be self-sufficient, and you can forget about it, man. I mean, my goodness, that's crazy. That's just insane. What's some of the latest that you've been doing prepping wise? Any new projects, or what you've been working on this summer?
Not really this summer, just immediately this weekend, because that computer outage, I feel intuitively that this is the beginning of a series of these outages, each one more severe. I kind of reassessed what I have of my own fuels and oil specifically, because I was doing some chainsawing anyway, so I was looking for bar oil and seeing if I had something for a 50-to-1 mix. I was just going through my oils, and I was going through my fuels, and I was taking a look and dusting off the generator. But then I thought to myself, extension cords. Because if you're going to be running a generator out of your house, you might be able to get a splitter off of that, and usually it'll come to 1 head to 3. And then from there, you can take 3 cords in, 50 to 100 footers. And then from there, you could split off 1 more splitter and then go into 2 rooms from that off of each cable. And then have maybe 1 for the kitchen as a main also. So having the backup generator and the fuels and everything's awesome, but you need to have enough cords strung around the house so you can still live sort of as you do, and figure out a system or a schedule of plugging things in and out to recharge all the batteries. So I was looking at my batteries. I was checking out all the walkie-talkies and the flashlights, everything, to make sure radios, emergency radio, that make sure everything was fully charged. That's what I was doing. And it's not about buying all the new stuff. What you need to do is take an inventory of everything and then focus in on electricity. See that, because I know electricity outages are coming next. There's something bigger coming. It's going to be a stepping stone to the next event, not going to be one. If you know that's in advance, you're going to be, all right, I'm going to need to focus on electricity. And I need propane tanks, because I noticed that 2 of mine were half full, half empty, however you like to look at that. But if I combine them, it'd be 1 full one. But I got to take 2 half empties to go back and get them filled, because I want to have as much propane, because if electric doesn't work, you're going to be relegated to cooking. Now, for regular propane, 20-pound propane tanks, you could cook for quite some time on that, for cooking your meals at night. That would definitely last you more than a month for cooking on the grill. So then you could save that electrical load from like plugging in electric cooking appliances and then send that to something else, your computer or the Starlink system or whatever. But you got to figure out all these extension cables, extension cords from the generator into your house with splitters to allow you to get and reach the cords from your devices. That should be a test of what you have in the house and how far you can reach and replug everything in coming off a generator like that.
No, I've talked about that. Certainly propane tanks, gas, have backup on gas. I got the solar panels ready to go. I mean, you got to think of all different kinds of ways in order to generate some energy here. So David's providing some solutions here. In the last area here before we let you go, David, you provided some solutions in regards to how you will pay for life basics. One of your more popular videos from the past a few weeks. What did you talk about there? Is this like basic bartering? How are we going to be able to pay for some of the basics here as the breakdown really starts ramping up?
Subscription model of your life. See, the whole article was focused on water companies are going to deliver water to your home, but if you don't want the forever chemicals in them, you'll have to pay an upgrade fee to have them remove the chemicals before they deliver it to your pipes. And it'll be like this for almost everything. If you don't want microplastics in the bottles of water that you're buying, then they can filter those out for you, and then there's a surcharge on that. So it's all about, they've polluted the environment to 19 ways from Sunday, and now for you to live a more healthy, you're going to have to pay a premium service to get that air, water, food that's not contaminated into your body, and it'll be a forever model because it'll work as long as you're alive. See, this is the whole plan going forward, and this is the craziest thing. Like, so far, these corporations have been polluting, think about PCBs in the 1950s and everything, DDT in the 60s and whatever, all the way until now microplastics. And the chlorofluorocarbons with the ozone and thing, like you get these stepping stones of ones you remember. But it's never not been this way. So all this garbage about, you got to clean the environment, got to do that. Okay, it's gotten worse continuously every year since I've been alive. And there's been more groups trying to say save the environment than there's ever been, and more money poured into it, and more money for protests and whatever, and all these groups to save this, that, and the other. But more of it's getting destroyed because the corporations are getting bigger and bigger. So they polluted this planet, polluted as it can get. Now we need to pay to have all that filtered out. This is the new pay-for model. This is how, if you want the dirty water with all the forever chemicals in it, that will cost you the regular base rate. You want the food, but you don't want the chemicals on it? Okay, we call that organic or like in Whole Foods now. But this is a whole new entire system and step up above that. So anything you can consume, food, air, water, is going to be on a metered system, and the more you pay for it to have the chemicals and the things that'll make you live less long, if you want those filtered out, it's going to cost you more money. And this is how they're going to move forward. Water's the first step.